Marley from the Energy Boutique with your energy forecast for Friday, September 17th. So the moon is going to be in Aquarius all day. This is going to bode very well for us because we get to detach from our emotions. Lord knows we could use this break. Things have been all kinds of overwhelming. We could definitely use this break to move up into the mental plane, into our higher selves, to act as the observer and really see what's going on in our heart space, in our head space, and of course, in our realities. There are 8 different aspects taking place today, and 7 of them involve the moon. Caution though, we are about to enter into the full moon energy window. Yes, we will be having the full moon in Pisces on the 20th, but we are so close right now to diving into that window that things are going to get a little bit wonky, a little bit sensitive, a little bit extreme. That's why the moon in Aquarius right now is our saving grace, detaching us from getting too emotional, of course, pushing us to see the bigger, greater, grander picture, and really highlighting for us where it is that we need to bust free and detach from some of the old systems that have us stuck in a very negative pain pattern. So the moon is going to go ahead and square Venus, who is in Scorpio. A square is a tension point. It's a conflict between the moon and Venus. The moon, of course, just wants to be left alone. I just want to go out on my own. I want to do my own thing. I don't need nothing from nobody. I'm good. I just need to be by myself. I need to fulfill myself. I just need to kind of push my intellect to really absorb what it is that I want, need, and desire in the future. But I can't have anybody around me. I don't want to be emotionally triggered. I just need to be left alone. And then you got Venus over here in Scorpio, who I hesitate to say needy, but possessive comes to mind. You know, Venus in Scorpio is all about wanting soul connections, wanting intimacy, wanting to feel loved and overwhelmed and consumed by love. And so, as you can see, there's a very dramatic narrative going on between these two. You have the moon, who represents our emotions and our subconscious self, really pushing for solidarity at this time in order to get a grip on the big picture on how it is we can come back and help everyone. But we can't figure that out when we have people around us, when we have emotions clouding our judgment. And then, of course, Venus over here in Scorpio just wants to know that we are worth fighting for, wants to love, but of course doesn't want to come off that way because Scorpio energy is very dark, very mysterious, very, I want you, I need you, I love you, I'm obsessed, I'm consumed with you, but I'm going to look the other way and ignore you until you realize that on your own, right? That Scorpio energy is kind of telepathic, has huge psychic abilities. And the downside to that is that we tend to think that other people know what it is that we're thinking and feeling, especially when it comes to emotions and needs and vulnerabilities and wanting, desiring, needing that deep level of intimacy. And so that whole Scorpio energy is very interesting, but you best believe that this is a tension point, a push and pull between the part of us that just wants to be left alone, just wants to bang on our drum all day by ourselves and lead our own little parade versus the want, need, and desire for such close intimacy that we lose ourselves in it. We don't know where we end and the other person begins. The moon at this point reaches Saturn, who is retrograde in Aquarius. So basically, the moon is sitting next to Saturn in the cosmos. And Saturn, the Lord of Karma, tends to bring us a little bit of a reality check. He reminds us of our roles, of our responsibilities. He wants to give us a little bit of a pep talk, reminding us of the tough love life lessons that we've gone through, kind of recognizing where it is that we're being tested right now, whether or not we actually learned anything, whether we can walk the walk and talk the talk. And the moon in Aquarius, of course, emotionally detached, constantly pushing for the bigger vision, recognizing where it is that we have to kind of rebel against the old connections, the old attachments, the old ways of thinking and doing things. Why? Because it's keeping us stagnant. And this moon in Aquarius doesn't want stagnancy. It wants progression. It wants innovation. It wants us to act as the observer and see why we are going through what it is that we're going through, where the connections are, where the soul lessons are, and most importantly right now, where the soul contracts are ending in order for new ones to begin. Venus, who is in Scorpio, then goes ahead and squares Saturn. So Venus, again, in Scorpio is all-consuming. We're really pushing the depths of our darkness. We are illuminated to our shadow selves. We want nothing more than to alchemize these darker parts of our experience, of our mental plane, of our heart space, in order to turn that pain into power, to use that darkness as a motivation to chase the light, especially where connections and soul contracts are concerned. So Venus right now feeling very torn, feeling very overwhelmed, very intense, very emotional, bumps into the Lord of Karma, Saturn, and is just kind of, on the verge of falling apart here because we recognize our wants, needs, and desires, and we recognize that most of them aren't being met. We also recognize that we haven't formed into a complete sentence to the people that we love what it is that we're lacking, the voids in which we thought that they were going to fill that we couldn't even put into words in ourselves. We're recognizing where it is that patterns are repeating themselves, where we want to break those patterns. So we're a little bit kind of vulnerable at this point, and bumping into the Lord of Karma, you best believe he's going to bitch slap us with a dose of reality. This is our call to get a grip. It is our call to get into the fact that we have to look at our situations for what they are and not for what we want them to be. We have to take a look at what is instead of what could be potential. And this is really going to kind of feel a little bit raw and vulnerable because we're recognizing in this little conversation with Saturn that most of the reasons of why we're feeling let down and disappointed by the people in our lives is because we haven't done our inner work to fulfill those spots within ourselves that we are subconsciously out in the world seeking partners to fill those voids. When we talk about loving ourselves and setting the tone for all of the other relationships in our lives based off of how it is that we treat ourselves, this is going to be an aha moment. This is going to be an eye opener to where it is that maybe we should stop looking outside of ourselves for people to fix our problems and fix our wounds and make us feel whole and make us feel complete. And maybe we need to start looking in the mirror and asking ourselves, why do these voids exist in the first place? Who caused these? Likely taking us back to our childhood, putting into focus where it is that, some of these wounds were created by our parental figures. And when we do that, and again, daddy issues are top of the list when Saturn's involved, when we do that, suddenly our energy shifts because we have to take responsibility and be accountable for our own inner workings. And when we can identify that, ooh, wow, I have this wound because of my upbringing, and I have been seeking partners subconsciously to match that vibration, to fill that void, and I've never put it into words of what it is that I'm actually looking for. This is going to be a huge life lesson in the law of resonance. When we attract people to fill a painful void, what we're doing is we're saying, hey, please mirror back to me all my pain and trauma. Hey, please mirror back to me the issues of my self-worth and my self-confidence. And Venus, being about love and worth, that starts within ourselves. And sometimes we need a little bit of a quick reality check in order to put ourselves in our place, to recognize that the overwhelming want, need, and desire to have an intimate, soulful connection with someone else is because we're lacking the intimate soul connection with ourselves. The moon is going to help us out here. It is going to make an interesting aspect to the sun in Virgo. The moon in Aquarius emotionally detached, wants to come up with some solutions, wants to push us outside of our comfort zone to adopt new ways of thinking. The sun in Virgo wants to illuminate for us where in our day-to-day life we've been repeating these old past patterns and habits, where we've been repeating these old negative narratives, where it is that we've been constantly avoiding working on ourselves in order to show up and be there for other people when we aren't even half full ourselves. We need this illumination. We need this realization in order for us to shift our perspective. The moon is going to go ahead and sextile Chiron. This is a good indicator that we're having some very powerful aha moments, very powerful awakening moments to the inner workings of our heart space, of our mental plane, of our soul space. Chiron is going to illuminate those wounds that we likely got illuminated with that reality check from Saturn. And now we're going to do something about it. What are we going to do? First of all, we're going to accept them. We are going to process them. We are going to connect the dots by reflecting back over all the friendships, all the personal romantic relationships, all the times that we failed to stand up for ourselves, and all the times that because we wanted to distract our own damn selves from ourselves, that we threw ourselves into other people's worlds, other people's business. This is going to change the game for us. And this is going to be even more powerful because the moon in Aquarius squares tension point conflict with Uranus. Uranus rules over Aquarian energy. Uranus is the great awakener, the shake-up, the wake-up call. He is retrograde in Taurus right now, shaking up our foundations in our routines, in our day-to-day life, in our personal relationships, in our values, in our worth, in our money, in contemplating how it is that we are planning for the future. We just had a huge awakening moment to some of the pain and trauma that we have been harboring within ourselves, expecting people from our exterior realms to magically heal that, even though we didn't even know it existed. This particular aspect is going to illuminate for us a total aha moment, a connection that once acknowledged cannot be unknown. This is going to startle us. This is going to shake us up, wake us up, prepare us to make some dramatic changes, not only in the way we think, not only in the way we feel, not only in the way that we operate, but in the way that we're expecting other people to show up for us when we have not shown up for ourselves. The moon is going to bump into Mars again in Libra. This is going to be a beautiful energy because Mars is fierce. He is a warrior. He wants to stand up for what is right. He wants to make things right. He wants to do what is fair. He wants to repair these relationships. But he does it through the intellectual battlefield of the mind. And Lord knows we had a very mindful day thus far. This is going to trigger us. This is going to put us in a sequence, in a series of actions where we are changing our physical demeanor. We are changing our habits and behaviors in order to align with what it is that we now have realized has been an automatic, let's call it, when you're on autopilot. When you are on autopilot, you are not standing in your power. When you are on autopilot, you repeat past patterns and behaviors in your mental plane, in your heart space, in your daily lives that signal to the universe, I'm happy to stay in this rut. Are you happy to stay in this rut? Absolutely not. You just had a huge awareness and realization that is going to change the course of your path moving forward. And Mars is here to fight for what is right, to blaze a path forward, to communicate what is needed within oneself and then outwardly to those that need to hear it. The moon in Aquarius is going to end off the day with a beautiful energy, a beautiful aspect to the sun in Virgo. This is essentially bringing all of these realizations, all of these aha moments, all of these awarenesses to the forefront on where it is that we need to make change. That moon in Aquarius, of course, is seeing the future, seeing the big, broad path before us. And the sun in Virgo just needs to rewrite the mental narrative, needs to bust the old walls down in order to find a solution, starting first in the way that we're speaking to ourselves, in the way that we are narrating our patterns and our behaviors in our day-to-day life. And the moon harmoniously bumping into the sun in Virgo right now is saying, you know what? Now that we know better, now we have to do better. That sun in Virgo wants to do better. This is an earth energy. We only have a couple of days left of the sun being in Virgo. This means that we, because we've agreed in our mental plane that change has to happen, we can bring it into the physical body. We can do something about it. And this is potentially setting us up for tomorrow when we get to put into action these little tiny tweaks, these little tiny changes in our perspective, in our thinking, in the way that we're handling our tasks, our day-to-day chores, and where it is that we are now going to be consciously aware of choosing to do better.